Recording, yep.
All right, let's get started. Hey, a very good afternoon, a good evening, depending on where you're joining. If you're in East Coast or Central Time Zone, it's almost 4 or 5 o'clock. Um, where Russell is, it's still afternoon, so he still have plenty of sunlight with him. So, a good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our South California chapter event for automation ops on solutions management. And thank you for tuning in today. This has been a great series that we have continued, started in February, I believe, and then we have been doing these sessions specifically focusing on automation ops for UiPath, how to build enterprise solution and automation ops features. So in terms of our agenda, primarily we'll focus on the solution management feature. We have covered other two aspects of automation ops in our prior sessions. If you missed some and haven't been able to join them, you can access that information and recordings for that, including the slide deck that we shared from the community page and also from the UiPath community YouTube channel. It's uploaded in both locations for your access. So for our community itself, I'm sure you guys are aware of UiPath has many community chapters, and we represent South California chapter. Even though this is there is a location tied to it, the events are hosted virtually, so anyone can join. The purpose primarily to bring uh, all the RPA folks, developers, automation enthusiasts, testers, automation testing folks, project managers come together and explore UiPath features uh, and products in detail, and also learn from each other. That's the most important aspect of it. Learning from experiences from each other. We are here. We as a host share what new features, new tools are available. We want to learn from you what you are facing challenges in your day-to-day work, whether it's for personal use or for your professional work. We'd like to learn about it, and if we have experienced those or we have certain solutions, we are more than happy to share that with you and learn from you. All right, myself Pradeep. I work for Peraton as a chief technologist for Central US. Primarily work for uh, government customers, including state and local and federal. I have my host with me, Russell. Russell, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Pradeep. Russell Alfetri here. I'm a part of Cubotica, who's a platinum partner of UiPath as well, leading the IA and RPA capability for our delivery services in Cubotica. So,
Thank you, Russell. Diana is the community manager. She is not with us at this time today for this event, but hopefully in one of our future sessions, she will be also participating. All right, let's move on to our agenda today. So our primary agenda, as we talked about, is automation ops. And within automation ops, primarily what we are going to go in detail is solution management. But before we talk about solution management, we also want to briefly touch the UiPath solution itself, right? So back in the day when RPA started with the UiPath product, there was like one or two different products. There was Orchestrator, and there was an IDE, the development environment, which was UiPath Studio. It was pretty limited in terms of what you can build, what you can host, and how you can run. But over the times, things have expanded a lot, and there are various different feature sets that have been introduced with time. Not just the automation that you build on the studio, but also there are plenty of assets that come part of it. So now you have assets in form of credentials, you have assets in form of the objects, queues, storage buckets. There are a ton of different things that you can that augment your automation itself. And with that added complexity, uh, you also mature your overall solution development life cycle. So just like in software development, it happened that eventually everyone uh, building small projects, everyone kind of graduated towards building more mature enterprise applications. We are seeing the same kind of maturity in terms of what UiPath solutions are coming to. So it just not includes code, but also not just the low code version of the code, but also you can add C sharp code as part of your coded automation. You can access different endpoints via APIs. You have assets of different sorts. So you have to manage all of that, and not just limited to that. You also have different configurations, right? So if you're using RE framework, there is a configuration. Even if you don't use RE framework, your automation may require a configuration information, and you can decide to put that as a local configuration file, or you can put that as part of data service, or even have as an asset. You can create those as an asset in the orchestrator itself. So there are multiple ways to skin the cat, if you will, right? So uh, all in all, once your automation is uh, built, you also have to have a very reliable way to move this automation from dev to test environment, from test to prod environment. Some organization may have a pre-UAT or staging environment, whatever nomenclature you may have, right? But the need is common, need is standard, that you have to have a way for moving these objects from one step to another step. You cannot have the automation just on your development box, and you can uh, just copy the code and move it to another environment and call it that, okay, this is published or this is in production. So that kind of maturity has to come in place, right? So that's what we are seeing with automation ops. Different features that we have looked at in during our previous sessions, including pipelines, setting up source control, looking at feeds, building versioning. So all of that is kind of one step at a time, moving towards building that operations aspect within your automation, right? Um, some people may argue, and I think we saw that in our first session also. There was a lot of conversation going on why we need a separate DevOps cycle for UiPath automation, right? Why cannot we use just the setup that we may already have? And that is true. If you already have a setup, definitely go for it. Use that for your DevOps pipeline. But the feature set within UiPath goes a step ahead, because all the components or building blocks of your automation solution are part of the automation of the UiPath ecosystem. So definitely it has much more leverage, much more control to move things or move objects from one stage to another stage in a seamless manner. So you have to do less work in a way, right? So if you're not leveraging something that you already have, definitely automation ops is a great add-on. Looking at the level of complexity that you may have to build outside, if you try to automate the whole thing using Jenkins or Maven script, automation ops, I would say, will still come on top. But again, there is not there is no single solution for all the problems, right? So depending on your use case, you can decide whichever is the best. But we are here to share what automation ops has to offer, specifically solution management, that we are going to talk today. All right, so let's move on to the next, primarily the solution itself. So the solution management comes as part of the automation ops uh, fee product within UiPath. So first and foremost thing, you have to have admin access or admin privileges for you to be able to access automation ops, and within that for automation solution management. So primarily what it will help you building solution packages. So there are three stages, right? So you have a project, you have a package, and you have a deployment. Using solution management, you can automate all these three stages, so that you don't have to write additional code to move from one stage to another stage. This will help you from moving one stage to another stage, but also it will help you in terms of you're just upgrading your solution, right? As we talked about moving automation from one tenant to another tenant, there is a different step for it. We'll go over that also during our walkthrough session. We'll talk about that as well, how we moved these automations across tenants. But as long as you're within a tenant, you can move these very seamlessly from one folder to another folder without having much implications, and you don't have to repeat the objects that you have to create behind the scene, like queues, assets, credentials, all that stuff. All right. So yeah, so let's talk about the prerequisite. I think I touched upon briefly already. You have to have a solutions contributor or solutions administrator role in orchestrator for you to be able to access automation ops and solution management for that matter. And there are three primary segments for automation ops itself: project, where you have folder level access. We talked about asset queue, trigger, processes, they are already there. And you can move objects within a nested hierarchy of folders. We'll look into that while going through our example. Once you have defined the project, then you go to the next stage, which is packages. So published packages, the published projects that you already have in your orchestrator, they can be converted into packages. Then you can maintain the version. So many a times it happens that even one of my recent experience in this aspect, that there was one version already published for one of my customers, and they noticed certain issues that they recently identified. Now those issues are also tied to some enhancements. So it's not like we have to readily fix them, but we have to also bring those enhancements together. So at that stage, I'm not in an urgency to upgrade that particular package, but I still have to continue to build version 2 of the solution, if you will, right? But even when the version 2 is available, I may not be ready to replace the version 1. So I may still have to keep both those versions together and continue to work in parallel for some time. So those are the cases where packages will be really helpful. Um, Last but not the least is deployments. Once packages are deployed to a folder, we talked about it can be done within a tenant or it can be done across the tenant. Both cases we will look into that in today's example. Uh, the only difference would be if you're doing it within tenant, you can just identify which package you want to move and the automation will take care of it. Across the tenant, you have to download that package to your environment and then move it across. So if you're doing from like pre-UAT to UAT, your infrastructure team or SCM, who is SCM responsible for SCM, they can coordinate that activity with little guidance. So like I mentioned before, today's session would be very hands-on. There's not much like history to be discussed, but more in terms of looking into the various uh, scenarios that UiPath has already provided to us as part of the solutions management to go over. So we'll look into that, and I'll be more than happy to get your questions. So feel free, if you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in chat. Um, we will respond to them in the chat, and also we'll take up those questions if there is a specific scenario that we need to discuss. So I think that being said, I'll ask Russell to give us a walkthrough and a hands-on demo for solutions management.
Thanks really for
Over to
the
you, Russell.
wonderful overview of solutions management as part of automation ops. And now let, let us walk you through an actual live example how you can, at its simplest state, how you can leverage this for your deployments. Right? So first is how do you access it? Right? Turn a black screen. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So first, automation ops can be accessed from the services. This is one of the services. And again, this is not a paid service. So if you're in automation cloud, this will be available for you if you have enterprise license. So you go to automation ops, and then so this is what we covered in the previous series, all this governance management, feed management, source control, pipelines. Now the last for this last session in the series, we're covering solutions management and how it will work. And Pradeep has provided a really good description, overview or value that what value it adds for your deployment, specifically for your RPA implementation and deployment from one tenant to another, right? So um, if I can do a quick analogy, you can think of it as um, purpose similar to a CI/CD pipeline or DevOps tool. So only difference is that two main difference. One, DevOps automatically can push your assets, push your packages, publish it on another tenant or another folder. But automation ops, you will have to create a project, and then that project will be packaged, and then you can deploy it to the other environments. So that's number one. Number two is DevOps or CI/CD pipeline, you may be limited for what you can include in your deployment, right? You may not be able to include triggers. You may not be able to include um, machine configurations. You may not be able to include all the things that you need to do a full deployment to another environment. But with automation ops, you can include everything, right? Everything that you need to set that up, let's say from from development tenant into your staging into your production tenant, right? So and this is let's say these are in this drop down you can see all of your tenants. In most of our customers, how we consider tenants are this can be your different um, environments, can be development, staging, production, or on some customers it can be like for specific purpose or for specific functions, right? But for now, imagine that let's say this is your base environment where you do development or testing, for example. um, and this is where your if I go to this particular tenant, right? So this that tenant, I have my development or testing folders here, and within those folders, I have subfolders that I've deployed all my processes. As you can see here, there are different processes deployed in the different folders. Similarly, I set up triggers, queue triggers, I set up queues, and I set up possibly storage buckets, and most importantly, I have assets in different folders right here as well, right? And as Pradeep mentioned, traditionally without automation ops solution management or without let's say CI/CD pipeline or DevOps, in order to deploy this to your other tenant, let's say your production tenant is in here, you would have to do you will have to create the folder, right? You will have to upload the package, each of this package manually. You will have to create the triggers. You will have to create the queues. You will have to create everything, right? Assets, storage bucket, all those you need to create. But now, what solution management does is it allows you to package all of this, or you can select what particular folder you want to deploy. And then once you package it, it's just a matter of deploying that package into the same tenant or downloading it and then uploading it into another tenant so that you can deploy it on that tenant. So how does that work, right? So now let's put all those into action, right? So all you have to do is create new project, and I want to focus on the this one. So let's say I want to deploy this whole folder, including the hierarchy, the this main folder, and then the subfolders, including all of the resources that I have. I wanna deploy it. I wanna create and include that in the package. So what I just need to do is I can just I can name a project anything I want, right? So project one, for example, or you can follow the naming of whatever root folder that you have, and then this canvas shows where you can add any or all the resources that you want to add in that particular package. As I said, I just want to focus on this folder, get all its resources, including the subfolders, and similarly all its resources as well, right? So I can just go in and select all of this, and again select for this subfolder and another subfolder. As you can see, it it knows what type of resource these are. It can be process, it can be queue, it can be trigger. So you can include that as part of the package. And then that's it. You just need to add that, and then it will take a few seconds to add that into the project. And then you can review whatever you have added. So you can delete those things that you don't want to include or deploy into the next environment or next folder. You can remove. Let's say you don't want to include this process, we can just click delete, right? um, and then so all this process I want to include in the package. Triggers, I want to include all of these triggers as well. So assets, of course, I want to include all those assets. So you can review what you want to deploy and what you don't want to include in the package, right? So for each of these resource, you would be able to see and edit or update the values. Let's say for this asset, right? This Boolean, you could be able to update it here, right? But I don't think you don't have to update this now, right? This is just creating the package, because once you deploy it, you have the ability to, let's say, from this tenant to the production tenant, I want to change the value of this asset, right? So during the deployment phase, you would be able to do that. So the value from your original or from the source tenant would not retain the value that would be the actual value for the production. I will show that in a bit, but yeah, it's as easy as selecting all the resources that you want to deploy into the next tenant, and then clicking publish, right? So I can, yeah, same package name, project one. So I remove, so it has also validation check. So this trigger has a dependency on scheduled process. So it's now prompting me to saying that this trigger won't is causing errors because the package may not be able to deploy it because this process is missing. So I can either acknowledge or I can just delete this trigger right here. So it makes sense, because if I don't want the deployment to create a trigger if the process is not there, so I can just delete this. So that validation check also comes built in, so that it has it makes sure your deployment is sanitary, right? So after you deploy, you can just go to packages. So it's consolidating all the resources that you've included in the package, and it failed. You see why it failed. Um, so let me go back and see. Let me try that again. Okay. So let's say once the project has been published. So let's say, imagine this is the project that you published, right? So the status, once it has successfully been published and created as a package, so the status will say it's ready, right? So the difference between these three, first is failed, meaning there is some issues with some of the resources that you've included, so that's why it's failed. Active is means the package is published and it has an existing deployment within that particular tenant that you have. If you look at here, I've installed this test one package, and ready is it has published successfully, but there's no existing deployments for this particular package. So that's the difference between the status right here. And obviously, the only ones that you can deploy, right, are the ones that are not failed. So the ones that you published, packages that you published that didn't fail, right? So in this case, let's deploy this one. But first, let's see what this test tool looks like. So same thing, but without the folder hierarchy. I just selected a subfolder, so you can also do that. So you can either select this whole folder, or you can select specific folder that you want to deploy, or include the different resources. Right. So this is what this particular project looks like, and that we are going to deploy into another tenant. So there's a difference between deploying into the same tenant versus another tenant, right? So now that we have the package published, first let's try to deploy within the same tenant. So within the same tenant, so I did not change the tenant. Within the same tenant, deploying is straightforward, right? In order to deploy, you just click deploy package and then select change the deployment name. You can change this or just leave it. And you have the option to either um, choose a parent folder, right? So that means the parent folder are this one, two, three, four, five. So you can choose which parent folder you want to deploy this folder that's included in the project, right? Or you can install this as a new root folder under tenant. So let me show what that means. So let's first try deploying this within a. In fact, you can deploy within a subfolder as well, as you can see here. So let's say I want to deploy it in the one of the parent folder. Let's say this one, production. And if I click continue, so before deploying, so this is what it looks like. It doesn't have any subfolder right here. And then once I deploy, so it will be installing this package. And this is the part that you could be able to change the values on on the different resources included in the package. Let's say for the queue, you can change the description, you can change the number of retry, so the name will be the same, it's not editable. For the process, you can change the description and other parameters here. Let's say in production, you want to record the job for failed jobs. So you do not do that, let's say in development or in the original or the source folder, right? So in production, you want to do a live stream with remote control. So this is where you can change the different parameters for the artifacts that are included. So this is for process. For again for queue, these are the parameters. For queue trigger, these are the parameters. So I'll just leave it like this for now, right? And then I click deploy. So if there's an asset here that you included, you can also change the value and asset when you deploy from, let's say, development folder into a production folder, right? So you'll just need to wait for it to install. The status is right here. You can wait for it to install for in a few minutes. So just to recap, I created a project in order to include all the artifacts or resources I want to include in the package. Once I have created the project, I can publish it and it will be published as a package. So once that package is validated and successfully published, now I am able to deploy it to another folder, or later I will show you how to deploy to another tenant folder within another tenant. So I'm able to successfully deploy into the folder that I selected. So if I refresh this one, so you can see here, it created a subfolder because I selected this as the root folder where I will install, and this is the one that it installed as part of the deployment package. So it created all the queues, it created all the process, it created the trigger, and if you have assets, it will create the assets as well. So this is what it looks like if you deploy it within a folder or within subfolder. And again, as mentioned, I will show you another way that you can deploy it on the root folder, how it looks like. So if you do it this way, so what will happen is, I'll just go ahead and deploy. So what will happen is similar to this, right? If you notice the small S icon right here, that means that's a solutions management package that was installed in this particular tenant folders, right? As compared to, hold on, let me check if it's successful. So let me just refresh. So here, so I deployed it within the root folder. So it just created its own parent folder. And initially I deployed it within a subfolder, but same contents, right? Same contents right here. Triggers are there, queues are there. And there's an S icon right here. So I want to point out a difference between this solution management installed folder versus the normal folders that you manually created. So in the normal folder, you can create subfolder, you can edit its parameter, you can you can basically you can write things here. You can change, update this, right? But for a solution management deployed folder, you have limited options, right? Although you can assign new machines, manage folder access, you cannot edit the metadata of this folder. You can add new asset manually. You can add new buckets. Um, you can add new process, but you cannot edit this folder, and there are restrictions, some additional restrictions on this folder. That is because in order to maintain the relationship between the project where you created this asset or this package, that provides, or that restriction should be in place so that there's a central project that you would want to go to and edit, right? Because when you're deploying to development and then deploying into the next environment, you want to test, if ever you want to make changes on the process, or you want to add additional process or probably additional assets, you want to do the change on your lower environment first, on your development first. So that same concept would apply here. So that's why there are restrictions for you to be able to update the some of the things within this deployed package, because in order to enforce that that central management of the project, because whatever changes you made to this project, you can then again deploy or publish it, and then that means you will have another version of the package, and that another version of the package is then that you want to deploy again to this one, right? Let's say you have another version of the package, you can change the solution version or upgrade it to the latest version of the package. So let's say you added a new asset or you added a new queue. You don't want to add the new queue here, right? You don't want to add the new queue here. You want to add it from the original folder where you created the project from, so so that you maintain the integrity, you make sure you're doing the proper testing and all those stuff before you deploy or upgrade the version of this deployed package, right?
I
So
mean,
that's
this is one of the key features actually not much talked about, that your when you set up this, when you do the deployment, both the environments are linked, so you can sync this whenever you make changes. Once you set up, kind of think of a like a pipeline, right? So it's not a real time sync. It is definitely it has to be invoked to perform the sync process. But I think it's really cool feature, because once you have done that, you don't have to really do it again, right? You can just, once you're ready for deployment or ready for propagating the solution to the next environment, you just go and sync.
absolutely. So just to show that to you real quick, let's so this is the original folder where the project is from. When I create an asset here, so let's say test asset, or I made changes, let's say to this queue, uh, max number of free tries. So once I've done that, I can go back to my project. Which one is it? Test two. Test two. And then from here, so I know that I have added an asset. I can just sync sync it from here. and then I can sorry the ones that I added, like I added an asset, right? I can add components. So in this case, from here, and I can see the asset I added. I can click update, right? So that asset will be added to the package. So the ones that I updated, I think is the queue, right? So if I can go ahead and so the max number of retries, right? If I sync this, so it will say all properties or read only properties. So the reason why it is here, because let's say on the target folder or tenant, you may have already overwritten the properties that can be edited. So you may not want to say all properties. So as default, it will only sync the read-only properties. But let's say you want to sync all properties. So it synchronizes the changes that you have um, from the original folder. And then again, you can publish this and go to packages, right? So you have the new version ready, 1.0.1, and then you can deploy it. So you can deploy it from here, or you can go here and then update change solution version to 1.0.1 and then deploy. So you can see here it added the test asset. So the changes, which ones have changes, which ones you've added, which ones you have updated, and then when you once you refresh, so you can see is it this one? Yeah, you can see the test asset right here. I only changed it here, but when I upgraded the version of the package, I can see it now here as well. And the changes in the queue, I can see that it has max. Not this one. It should have changed the max retries as well. So this is how you deploy from one from one folder to another folder within the same tenant, right? But what if you want to deploy the package from one tenant to another tenant, right? So right now it's not that as straightforward as deploying within the same tenant, just because each tenant are hosted in different can be hosted in different regions, so they are logically separated entities. So it's currently a technical limitation because these are infrastructures that are separated or segregated with different regions. So right now, in order to deploy from one tenant to another, you have to download the package. Let's say I download this one, download the latest version, and then I can go ahead and say, so once I have downloaded that, I can go to another tenant, let's say this one, and then uh, I can go ahead and upload the solution package. Select the file that I downloaded. Right here, test 2, and then upload. So, so let's wait for that to finish. So one thing I have experienced, because we've been using this for deployments for customers as well, um, it seems to have some sort of size limitation of the package, which can be caused by some of the process that you have, maybe more than 50 MB, just because there are files that are stored within that package, or you are connected to Git, and Git stores the historical commits and including the data as well. So if it is more than I think 50 or 80 MB, you may have some errors when uploading the package. So keep that in mind. I've experienced that. So I had to clean up the project first. What I mean by project, or the studio project first, before I publish the new version. So so now once it's ready, it's the same thing that you did when deploying from the same tenant. You just deploy package and you choose a folder. So in this tenant, there's only one shared folder, or you can install in the root folder. So let me just deploy it here. And then if you go to that other tenant,
You have everything, like all the objects combined into one single package. You don't have to recreate the assets, credentials, all
yep,
of that. Even you're doing across the tenant. You don't, I think the extra step that you have to do it also in a way to make sure that this is what you really want to do, right? You don't want to accidentally upgrade a particular automation that you didn't plan to do that. So I think that's that way, and there may be some other options later on, right? Once in next iteration of the solution, if that is
yep,
something UiPath may want to do that. Uh, but it creates everything, and you just have to just upload and just follow the same deployment process to get it upgraded.
absolutely. And that's why when you deploy a package, there's that option here where let's say you're moving from staging to your production, right? In your production, so the value of this asset should be different. Let's say this is prod, so you can change that before you deploy to your production. Let's say in your production you can have 4 retries or 3 retries. In your production you have uh, so you can change it from here before deploying, so um, it will propagate here, right? And then it's just a matter of um, enabling the triggers, or um, so you can just enable the triggers or make sure that the triggers are properly set and pointed to the proper machine or account in your production tenant, right? Because one of the main difference in your development tenant and your production tenant, your development may only have non-production robots, test robots, while in your production you will have unattended production bots. So yeah, so these are the only things that you need to make sure.
Russell, can you go back to the the step where you can edit? Yeah, this is the step. I think, Karina, this is what you're referring to. So if you want to edit, you can edit here. Uh, you cannot make edits to the package zip file, the compressed file. You can do the editing only within the UiPath interface. So you can make changes here. But if you have a large number of uh, variables that you have to change from one interface, from one stage to another stage, I would suggest that, I mean, there are different ways to do it. You can use even data service for that, or a separate configuration file if you really have a huge number of variables. But if it is manageable, then you can always edit it from here.
That's correct.
All right, thanks, Russell. Please continue.
Yep, I think I'm done actually. So we can just
Oh yeah,
answer
yep.
questions if there are.
Yeah, I
So
think
uh
there were a few questions. I answered them, most of it.
mhm. Yep,
But yeah,
yes.
if there are any other questions, feel free to unmute also. We have completed the walkthrough that we wanted to share. But given one other thing I just wanted to mention here, the solution management is just, I think it recently became generally available. So I think there are more features that we can expect in the future for sure for on this. There are areas that needs more improvement, like one of the things that Russell mentioned, that size, there is a size limit if you're doing across the tenant. And also, I think one of the questions that Corina was talking about, that is there a way to migrate roles and permissions? I think it will be a tricky one, but there may be some way to do it. When I look at solution management, it actually reminds me one of the solution accelerators, that is Orchestrator Manager, that came before the solution management was released. So that is also another thing, Russell, if you remember, right? The Orchestrator Manager was kind of a tool that we used until last year for these kind of migration work, uh, just to be able to transfer these objects with assets, credentials, queues, and all that. But solution management really makes it far more easier than using Orchestrator Manager.
Right. Yep.
So I
And
think that, go ahead, please.
no, I was just gonna say I tried Orchestration Manager in the past, and it's very helpful to, especially if you have large number of assets that you want to
Yeah,
create in another folder. But yeah, you will have to figure out first initially the different authentication mechanisms. You have to create the application registration, something like that. But yeah, this solution management aims to streamline that experience. I think Orchestrator Manager is also limited in terms of the objects that you can migrate. But not sure if you can migrate the triggers there as well.
no, you
Um,
can migrate it. The thing is that it has all the features, but you can only do like one object at a time.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, it's kind of a precursor, right? Kind of a version zero for solution management, to be
yeah,
honest. Like it had all the objects in it, but it was like a very manual process. The only benefit it had, that okay, you don't have to go create each object manually. It generates an interim Excel sheet, and then you can directly target point that to the target tenant, and then it will copy all those objects. But it's better than manual, but it's definitely, solution management is 100 times better than using Orchestrator Manager.
yep. So Corina has a question. So if I have to use a pipeline for my process, can I exclude the process from the package and bring everything else to the new environment? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you remember, if I go back to one of the projects, I don't have to select all, although I did a select all, but I can just select specific process that I want to include in the package. I can remove certain things. Let's say here, I can remove this, right? Let's say when you're just starting, so you can select even across other folders as well, right? So this folder comes from this one. So meaning I selected 6 objects here. I can also select other objects here, this process, but I can deselect process here. So it has only 5 objects here. So you can mix and match whatever you want to include as part of the package. Um, but in terms of organize, you also have to be organized. Even if it's even if it's in the development, you have to organize it in such a way that all your related process or all your related configurations or objects are within the same parent folder or within the same folder itself. But you don't want to have something that exists across other parent folders or subfolders. But yeah, you can definitely deselect and unselect the things that you want to deploy and the things that you don't want to include. Hope that answers your question. Nice.
So there is a search feature on top. If
Yeah, that's
you only know the object's name, you can use that to search. But I don't think so. There is a replace feature. All right, folks. So that's a wrap for today. We can still stay here for a few minutes. It's almost uh, top of the hour. Um, Let us know if you have any other further questions on this, and I'm really um, thankful for everyone joining here and spending an hour of their evening with us on this particular topic. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. The documentation link, the deck that we have shared today, and the recording for this session will be available on the community page itself where you signed up for it, and also it will be posted on the UiPath community YouTube channel. So that being said, we have another session coming up towards the end of this month. We will have UiPath product senior product manager Alex with us. He will be talking about automation ops. He's the product manager for automation ops. So he'll talk about the vision, the idea, the roadmap, and where automation ops is going to be, what new features you can expect during the October release. So that will provide all the information. So I hope you everyone signs up and join that particular session. We'll have a lot of things to learn from Alex on that. Karina has a question. Will I be access? Yes. Sure. You can always go back to our community page. Usually, community page shows you the upcoming events, but what I would suggest, just search with Automation Ops series. So this is the third session. There were two more sessions happened before that. You can find those on the community page itself, or you can go to UiPath community YouTube channel. Let me see if I have the link. So you can watch the video there too. See.
Yep, I think I have the link. So you can search for the previous recordings here. I'll post the link in the chat.
Yeah. So that's the best way to find out. You can search for the previous link. You'll have the video embedded within the page, and the deck as well. So you'll have both at the same place. All right, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in the next session.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Philip.
Russell, for the great demo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye now. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. We'll see you next time.